Hello, everyone. It's Angela Ochu-Baiye, and you're welcome to Across Borders. I'm really excited about today's show, and thank you very much for everyone that's joined in right now to join, of course, this live broadcast. Remember that you can post your comments, your contributions, your suggestions, everything that you want to talk about regarding this show. You can post it there as a comment, and we will, raise it up during the course of the show. And if you are watching this show as a repeat broadcast, please feel free to also post your comments as well. Remember that Across Borders is also on YouTube, and you can check our handle out for the recorded versions of all our shows. Okay, so today I am going to be talking to a very good friend of mine. He is someone that has equally mentored me as well in broadcasting while I was in radio. And like I said, he's a very good friend of mine, and he is a broadcaster and the founder of Movement Against Abuse in Churches. His name is Solomon Izang Ashoms. I'm going to be bringing him on board. And today we will be talking about an amazing conversation, which is COVID-19 and religion, or religion and COVID-19, however you want to look at it. And he's a Christian, of course, and I know that when we talk about religion, religion is not just off. Okay, I think we're back. So when we talk about religion, of course, religion is not just about Christianity. It covers different, types of religion. You've got Muslims, you've got Christians, you've got Buddhists, you've got all sorts. But for the purposes of this conversation, we'll probably, talk more on the aspect of Christians and maybe a bit of Muslims as well. Looking at the conversation, religion and COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 came on board. It's a pandemic, as we all know, and suddenly a whole lot has changed, regarding our lives since the whole pandemic started. And religion is a major thing. For example, you would say, this is a main thing. You talk about African Okay, apologies. Yes, we're back now. We had some disruption. I'm really sorry about that. We just need to, make do with the situation at the moment. Okay, so I will bring Solomon Izang Ashoms on board. Like I said, he's a broadcaster and the founder of Movement Against Abuse in Churches. Solomon, thank you very much for joining me. Hi, Solomon.
Hi, Angela. Good to be with you.
Solomon, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me? I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay. Fantastic. I can hear you now as well. Sorry about that. We had like a break in transmission, but yeah.
Clearly.
You can hear me now?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay. So our conversation is about religion and COVID-19, but I'd like to start first by asking you this question, which, has to go back. I'm going to go back again to the fact that you are the founder of the movement against abuse in churches. Um, when what happened? Why did you? I mean, this when I saw the name, I'm like, this is so strong. It's like we're moving against all forms of abuse in churches. What happened? Why did you have to do that? You tell us the
Uh,
story, the short story.
yeah, I think the short story is I used to be editor of a magazine, um, which is a Christian magazine called Parable
Okay.
Magazine. And I now
Hmm.
I founded it and then I ran it for about 10 years. And I used to get feedback from people because I interview leaders and pastors and bishops and
Hmm.
Christian leaders. And I used to get feedback from people, questioning some of the integrity of these leaders that I interview, telling me stuff that I don't know about, stuff that you don't hear about news. It starts from abuse to rape, to adultery, to spiritual abuse, financial abuses. So I decided to talk about it, and a lot of women also started talking to me around, you know, their experiences. And I'm a very compassionate person when it comes to injustice. It just kind of like ignite my compassion towards people, the victims, or just making sure there's fairness and justice. So that's how it started. So I now started having conversation around it around Facebook, and I saw that, wow, people were inboxing me and telling me their stories, and I investigate and I find out actually this is a true story. This is not just something that they made up, and so uh, how much that has really damaged the reputation of the church. And a lot of these victims, they run to the police, they run to church for help, they run to the police, but no one is ready to listen to them. So they not come to me because they know that I talk about it, I put it out there. And that was actually how it started. And I didn't know it was a big issue until I started it. And I also, obviously, I started getting a lot of threats, and intimidations from some of the followers and some of the leaders that I do mention in my conversation, trying to unveil the truth around that. Because we're a church. Church is supposed to be a place of refuge. It's supposed to be a place of safety. It's supposed to be a place of support and help for people who are broken, people who are going through issues. But when the leaders now turn that around and use that opportunity, using your influence and your leadership position to abuse women, to rape women, to commit adultery, to take money from people, and it becomes a problem. And I don't think I'm that kind of person that would be quiet around it.
Okay, thank you, Solomon. And I can definitely imagine the threats, like you mentioned, and various people going, strictly against you because, when you talk about religion, um, it's a very dicey thing, especially in this part of the world that we're in. But what's your take about the parts of the world that are often seen as religious? Would you say the whole world is religious, or this part of the world is religious, or that part of the world is religious? What is your definition of being, religious? Because then again, people say that being religious is equally different from for following a particular faith. That it is possible for someone to be, should I say, you know, a Muslim or a Christian, and not necessarily religion.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I think
Yeah.
we just went off briefly.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
go ahead.
I think for me, uh, let's look at the definition of religion itself in the first place. Religion is defined as a belief and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. And also somebody
Okay.
define religion as ideas about the relationship between science and religion. So religion itself is a belief. When you believe and worship a god, or when you believe and worship something. And I would want to believe that, even atheists believe in something. You know, you don't have to be a Christian, Muslim. You don't have to be a Hindu. You don't have to be Scientologist to believe in it. But I feel when we look at religion in itself, there's a part of the world that actually there's been quite a lot of beliefs. You know, South America is very big with Catholics. You know, Africa, there is a split between Christians and Muslims. In the Middle East, and even if you go to Asia, places like India, where you have, you know, about 2 billion people, majority of them are Hindu. If you go to China, they believe in something. They're in the Shinto, or they're Buddhist. You know, Japan with a huge population, the same thing. So I think everybody believes in something, and religion is very important because by nature, the way we are created as human beings, we crave for. We know there is something bigger than us, and we always want to try to connect to that. You know, different people do it differently, but in Africa, we see, especially being a Christian, for me, I've seen a lot of Christianity in itself, uh, you know, in Africa. And I have also, you know, sometimes you meet Christians who will tell you, like, Christianity is not a religion, it's a relationship. But for me, it's both. You know, it all depends on how you look at it. You know, by virtue of the fact that you say Christianity is a religion doesn't take anything away from Christianity. It's just trying to use an English language, which is religion, to explain, you know, how you connect to a divine being. You know, it's as simple as that. But I feel in Africa, you get very devotional people when it comes to religion who can give everything, be it Christian or Muslim. They can put everything on the line. They can give all of their life because they believe in it for different reasons, some for economical reasons, some for reasons best known to them. So it all depends on the context, you know, that has to do with your location and also your community where you come out from.
Yeah, so definitely you would say Nigeria, South Africa, Africa in general is a very religious country. One way or the other, you are picking one religion of some sort, right?
Yes. Africa is
Yes.
very religious. Definitely very religious. I would say, you know, but I would say majority of Africa is Christian. A little bit
Mm-hmm.
more than Muslim. But Africa is very extremely religious. I don't think you would
Mm.
find. I don't think you would find 0.5% atheists, you know,
Yeah.
in Africa. Whether you're not Christian, then you're Muslim. That's always the
Mm.
key. Even if
Yeah.
you're not any of it, then you are like, you believe in traditional beliefs, you know, in the beliefs
Mm.
our ancestors used to believe in, you know. So somehow you try to connect to a God. You go to worship, you sacrifice to a God, you go to the river to do certain rituals and all that. We have quite a lot of that in Africa. So Africa is extremely religious. I think when you look at every continent, I would think Africa is one of the most, if not the most religious nation, the religious
The
continent.
most, yeah. So if we juxtapose that right now with COVID-19 coming in, I mean, let's even go back to how Ebola was before. Ebola was more of like an epidemic, wasn't a pandemic. And we know how Africa in general, or should I say maybe Nigeria, Congo, and some other countries responded to Ebola. But now this is COVID-19, which is everywhere in the whole world. As well, some places still have not counted their cases, but basically it is a pandemic. Now, placing both religion and COVID-19 together, um, and maybe using, since you're a Christian, let's take it from the Christian point of view right now. How do you see your work, for example, as the founder of the movement against abuses in churches, um, with maybe certain abuses that you equally saw happening in the church before COVID-19 came, may not necessarily be in relation to, maybe raping of women, like what you said before, maybe
Yeah.
other kinds of abuse that you saw in the church that happened before COVID-19, and how COVID-19 is actually changing that, or either, should I say, exposing the abuse more. If you could just share with us any of your thoughts.
I think for me, COVID-19 is it's a great opportunity for the church to really realign itself and ask ourselves questions about what we do, how we conduct ourselves,
Okay.
what we have embraced as doctrines and theologies. Yes, definitely. Before COVID-19, there was quite a lot of um, abuses that's going on. Let's say financial abuse that's been going on, where people are promised uh, that their prayers are going to be answered if they give certain amount of money, where people are being taught and asked to come for prophecy, but for you to be able to have a one-on-one with the prophet, you need to pay a certain amount of money, where you're told to give all that. You're told if you do that, God is going to protect you, God is going to provide for you. But then COVID-19 came, and then you lost your job. COVID-19 came, and then you're not doing well financially. In spite of all that you've done, you were told to do, and you sowed, you gave that money, you gave everything that you have to. And so people now started really questioning if the whole financial system, where you give because you're told to give, or where you get prophesied over, whether that's the case. And also, one area is the area of healing, where before COVID-19, there are prophets and pastors that really champion themselves out as healers. And I'm not saying God doesn't heal. God heals, and He's God Almighty. He's Jehovah Rapha. He's gonna keep healing. I know that about Him. But there are, unfortunately, pastors and prophets who create an atmosphere of healing when there is no healing. They try to create it, manufacturing it, deceiving people. And when COVID-19 came, people got infected, some people are dying, but we haven't had any prophet or pastor in Africa who has said, look, this person was COVID positive, but now I prayed for them and God came in and he's negative. We haven't seen that. So people are beginning to really say, hey, where is the church? Where are the prophets? Where are the so-called healers? We don't see them anymore. And that is leaving a whole lot of question mark on people.
Yeah, but here's where I want to just hold you up there. When you mentioned that, I started to smile, because I know for a fact that there are certain pastors or certain leaders of churches who have actually who are looking forward to being allowed into, for example, some of this isolation centers where you've got COVID-19 patients there, and wanting to pray for them, and pass on, God's healing to them as well. However, because of the restrictions that the government is placing right now, some of them are possibly even writing letters first to get permission so that they go in there. So in a way, in a sense, unlike before, that people could just come into a particular place and maybe you say, certain pastors are praying for them. Pastors can't do that right now. They are even being locked. I mean, they're having to obey the lockdown policies that each country has been given. So for you to say right now that you haven't seen any pastor praying for anybody or healing anybody, maybe because the government has not permitted them to go into some of these centers, or are you saying that they do not think that they can heal those people? What's your position?
I think you don't need to be you don't need to be where the victim, someone who's sick, for you to pray for them. In Matthew 8, we are taught about the fate of the centurion who came to Jesus, and said, look, hey, my daughter is not feeling well, but you don't even really have to go there. All you need to do is just, to declare it. And Jesus looked at him, was so amazed, and it's like, wow, your faith is so strong. We can call somebody on the phone and we pray for them. I mean, you and I know, Angela, we watch Christian TV like TBN and all that, where you see a prophet praying and he will tell you to put your hands on the TV set and pray, and you're going to receive your miracle. We can a phone call, we can do that. We can call people. We can even pray for people who we know their names, maybe because of their families reached out to the church or to a pastor for us to pray for. We don't need to be in front of somebody and pray for them. We can pray for a community. We can pray for a location of like 70,000 people. And we know the hospitals, there are people who are COVID positive. We can pray and pray and pray. And then there's this outbreak of healing. We don't need to go there. Then you would have this outbreak of healing that's just going to reach out to so many people. That's just going to be boom. Because that's what the times that we're living now. Before COVID, we can have everybody in church or in a meeting place. But now the context is we have restrictions. But even with restrictions, God can still work. So not having people in front of you in a church or in a room is not enough.
So what you're saying, I mean, with your words, you're saying even with restrictions, God can still work. So why isn't the church, for example, showing that God is still working with these restrictions, meaning that what they did pre-COVID was what, not real? Or
maybe a lot of it was not real, and maybe a lot of it was we were comfortable. We have a comfort zone because people would come to us, would come to a church building, and we got used to that, and we now put God in a box, and we feel God can only reach out to you when you come to a certain place. So that means we're putting God in a box. So we've forgotten that we can be in our homes, locked down, and in unity pray, intercede, and the power of God would hit a hospital, an isolation center, boom. A quarantine place, boom. And we're going to hear of people just testing negative and testing negative and testing negative. And so the restriction in itself, we have to ask ourselves as a church, how do we work with that? Angela, the fastest growing church in the world is in Iran. That's the fastest growing church. They have no church building.
What is, okay. So tell me what you're using as the basis for it being the fastest growing church, because I did hear that the fastest growing church was actually in Nigeria. So if you're saying Iran, let me hear, your what the standard is.
We're looking at a place where you are recruiting, not the multiplication of church, where churches are growing in numbers, but we're looking at a place where you're recruiting people who are non-Christians. One, people who have a lot of restriction. Two, people who that you will look at them because of the restrictions that is there. They are discipling more and more people. So discipleship is a part of it. Nigeria has a big church. The church in Nigeria has been big, and it's been there for a long time. But we're talking about Iran, a country where it's Islamic, and we know the restrictions there. I think after Saudi Arabia, the next country that is very, very Islamic is Iran. But we see a church there that they have no building. They meet in homes because they are restricted. Even if you're caught meeting in homes, you're going to face punishment. The church's majority is led by women. They don't have properties and all that, but they're making it, what I'm trying to say is they're making it work for them based on their context.
Solomon, I'm so sorry, but I actually lost you at some point. If you could please just take some few seconds back and just repeat what you were saying regarding the church, the fastest growing church in Iran. Please, yes. Go ahead.
And I would really like actually for people to really research that, because this is based on research and different researchers coming up with that, just so people would know the different elements that that brought up that about when I'm talking about a church where they're not supposed to meet at homes. If you meet at homes, they catch you, you're going to be punished by the state. But still, they meet at home, they put their life at risk. And its majority of the church is led by women. They don't have a property, they don't have a church building, they don't meet all together. But there's just an explosion of power and Jesus coming face to face with people. What I'm saying is we have to look at the church in Iran and say, what can we learn from them? In spite of their restriction, in spite of their confinement and the lockdown by Islam, they're still making it work one way or the other. What can we learn from it? We're not in the same situation because at least we can still meet at homes. Anyway, we're not allowed to meet at homes now, but you can still, meet as families or whatever. But at the same time, we have to tell ourselves that, look, what can we learn from them that we can apply today? Just so we don't restrict God and say, look, this is where we are. The reality is, as a church in Africa, as a church in South Africa, Johannesburg, as a church in Lagos, Nigeria, as a church in Nairobi, Kenya, as a church in Blantyre in Malawi, or as a church in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, this is a reality because of COVID-19. How do we still make it work? Just so we would know God from a different dimension.
Okay, so I like the fact that you've just at least the 2 points you were trying to raise was looking at the financial abuse part of what happens maybe in churches, and probably the aspect of healing. You took those 2 examples and you are relating it, or using the healing example, for example. What am I saying? I'm repeating examples too often. Using that healing part, and now you're relating it to some extent the restrictions that Christians, for example, are having in Iran, and yet they're still doing what they have to do, and moving on with the vision and all of that. And for you, you're saying it also shows that the church is growing as fast as it's growing really fast, right? I get that. Now let's look at the aspect of maybe another religion, for example, Muslims, and take this question in a different line, because our conversation has to do with religion in general. How prepared would you say, or do you reckon that the church or Muslims could have been if they could actually predict COVID-19 becoming a pandemic? Like, how do you think we could have handled it? So if, for example, 31st of November last year, somehow all the Christians, all the Muslims, or the heads of or imams knew that the pandemic was going to come in, how do you think that they would have prepared for it coming into 2020?
I think, if you look at the church, Christians and Muslims, the Christians and Muslims are not far from each other when it comes to their theology. I would say maybe Christians and Muslims, maybe 70% of what we believe we can agree on, because obviously Islam came out of Christianity. So the difference is not really that much. There's a lot that we agree on. It's far more, that we agree on. And we are a religion that is driven by a sense of community. That's why we always meet together. We meet for prayer. Muslims pray 5 times a day. You want to go to the mosque. You don't want to, just do it alone. You seldom see a Muslim praying alone. Even if they are at the market, they tend to meet together. And Christianity, the same thing.
Yes.
So I feel that if we had known about, if somebody had predicted the arrival of the COVID pandemic, that sense of community would unite us together and say, how do we now...
That's both Christians and Muslims, right?
Both Christians and Muslim. How do we now make sure we take precautions? How do we now look after our health as a community? We come here, this is a virus that is easily transmitted. If we have an idea, how do we do? When you go to the mosque, sometimes you see the same, tens of people or hundreds of people using the same kettle, to wash their feet and their hands, and with a virus like COVID, that would be a good place for COVID-19 to be transmitted, to spread. So I think it would have given us a lot of opportunity to inform, to educate, and to also take a lot of precaution. The leaders would take a lot of precaution for people. And I think the church or the mosque, Christians or Muslims would really, I think in Africa, if there is one group of people that could achieve a whole lot that the community and society and people listen to, is religious people, either Christians or Muslims. They do listen to us. They do listen to the leaders very much more than the political leaders, very much more than the business leaders, and they believe them. And I think if we had any sort of clue of what is coming, I feel we would have said, okay, let's take precaution. Yes, the virus is going to come. A few people might be affected, but maybe not the way it is today that we see from Kano to Cape Town to Lagos and all that.
So I want to agree with you on that notion that if, both the Christians and the Muslims knew about not knew about it, but more of were on the same table way before this pandemic came, we could have done a whole lot more. And you also mentioned how definitely religious leaders play a crucial role in Nigeria, whether we like it or not. I was having a conversation with Safia Ibrahim, who is in Gombe State, and she was talking about the misinformed COVID-19 people in the northern part of the country, and how no one was actually taking any of the information that the media was passing out, seriously. And she also felt that if the religious leaders were involved in it, the imams were involved in it, and were speaking directly to their congregation and letting them know that this is what is going to happen, or this is how they should take precautionary measures, that a lot of the deaths, for example, that is now happening in the northern part of the country would not have been that way. We know that before Katsina State, the governor actually released some letters stating that everyone should go ahead and continue with prayers, even during the time when the president had locked down the whole country and saying, everyone stay at home. But you would find that a governor who is in a northern state possibly also believing that let's go ahead to pray because we are a very religious state. So we look at how powerful religion is to the people, and how the people would probably not even go with what the government is saying, except their religious leaders tell them to go ahead with that. So you were saying if Muslims and Christians were able to come together and found a way around this before the pandemic actually came on board, then we would. Would you say that the deaths occurring right now would not be as high if our religious leaders took it seriously?
Yes, I mean, a few people are going to die. People are going to be infected. That's just a reality of it, because sometimes people don't follow information that they're given. They don't want to obey. So unfortunately, that happened. But if you look at, the foundation of religion, either Christian or Muslim in Africa, if it's very community based. And I think religion, Christianity and Islam has the biggest network, in Africa. They have the biggest voices. They have the biggest networks, from communities to homes to towns and to cities. There's a way that they can transfer information. There's a way that they can share information. There's a way that they can distribute maybe health instruments, maybe health items, maybe masks or sanitizers or whatever, and really get ready before then. They can do it far easier than the government. Unfortunately, even from the religion, both Christian and Muslims, even here in South Africa, even when during the lockdown, there was a case of the police going into a mosque and people were there praying and they had to arrest them. There is a case even in Nigeria, in Abuja, we saw it, where a church was meeting when they are aware that they're not supposed to meet, when they are aware that only 50 people, only a certain number of people are allowed to attend a meeting, but then they are meeting. There is a case of leaders saying God is bigger than COVID-19. Yes, we know God is bigger than COVID-19, but you're simplifying it. Tell people how to be able to take care of themselves. God is also in health. God is in science. God is in
Yeah.
science, and we have to obey what science is saying. Science is not
Okay.
saying we should discard our faith, but if we can really join forces, I feel the mistake we made from the beginning, even from a political perspective and even from a church or a religion perspective, is we didn't unite and say, let's deal with this together. Until
Mm.
this is it, not the church is just waking up now.
Yeah.
Religion,
Okay.
they're just waking up now, so we need to be able to do something more.
I mean, I'm going to hit on a statement that you made. However, I'd like for us to quickly take a comment that was made by Ochu-Baiye on Facebook, and that's going back again to possibly the statement you mentioned regarding healing. And she's saying that she agrees with your conversation or your comment on healing there, but she's saying that how do you prove that it was actually the prayer that healed the people and not the national progress of the virus? Because we know that the virus, no, you see, this is another question. I mean, it is a
Yeah,
scientific question as well. We know
yeah, I
that the
love it.
virus it doesn't have a cure. It has, it has a time frame to which if your own body, your immune system can at least fight against the disease. I mean, right now there's no cure, there's no vaccination, nothing. So a lot of people are also getting better because their body has, fought against it. But she's also saying, okay, how do we tell that this is just a natural process or this is a prayer? And yes, and I can tell you for a fact that there are a lot of pastors as well, and a lot of people, regular people that are not even pastors, me, my children, when we pray in the evening, in the morning, anytime we pray for people who have been infected with COVID-19. So yes, it could have been my prayer, my daughter's prayer, that
Yeah.
equally, healed other people as well. So, are we blaming the leaders, or are we not taking responsibility as well that everyone should pray? I know I'm asking two different questions at the same time, but
Yes.
if you could please respond to her
No,
comments.
no,
Yes.
I do agree with Ochudo, because her question or her statement was basically saying, look, you cannot separate God and science. You cannot just separate God and science. God and science is together. You might not agree with certain scientists, but the wisdom of science in itself, of discovery, of innovation, of researching, of getting solution to a whole lot, is from God, because He created every one of us, whether we're Christians, whether we're Muslims, whatever our faith is, and He gave us the wisdom for us to be able to achieve that. So, there was a case of people, saying that, I think a pastor, I was listening to him yesterday, and he said there was this guy who had all the symptoms of COVID-19, and they prayed for him and he got healed, and then his brother went to a hospital and he was positive, and then they now asked him, who were you with? He said his brother. But you prayed for me, my question for the pastor is, you prayed for this guy, he had symptoms of COVID-19, but he never went to the hospital. He never went for a test. So for me, I have a problem there. Because you have the symptoms doesn't really actually mean you have COVID-19. There are so many people that have had symptoms, but actually is not COVID-19 in itself, And also, I always tell people there are different categories of what we're going to go through with COVID-19. There are people who are going to be, infected, and then they're going to be healed. There are people who are going to be infected and they're not going to make it. And there are people who are going to be infected and they would not even know that they're infected. And just the natural progress, like Ochudo said, just the natural progress, they will be infected. They would have no idea. It will infect them, their body, and they will not even going to be aware of it.
Mm.
So that is just the reality of it. But the importance of prayer, like you said, either you're praying as a family, this is the best time for us to unite as a family in prayer.
Yeah.
This morning we wake
Mm.
up with my wife, and that's what we did. This is the best time for us to send prayers out. And we don't, sometimes we pray, we don't have to see the results. You know, the beneficiary would be miles away. It's fine. We don't have to see the result, but we believe that God is intervening. God is doing something when it comes to healing people, comforting those who are infected, and really protecting those who are not even infected.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Solomon. So going back again to what I wanted to mention, there's a belief that this pandemic has thrown everybody, off their feet. Like, it's shocked a lot of people. It's like, wow, I didn't see this coming. And suddenly people are having to, find their feet, and even countries, developed countries, who people think, will probably give certain leadership in how to go about things. Even they got shocked. Like, how do we balance our economy together? How do we balance our health system? Everybody is going through, this stressful period. However, I'd like for us to, and so when you mentioned the fact that the church is only just catching up, in a sense, it's like, let's not blame the church, let's not blame the mosques, because everybody in the whole world, to some extent, is in that same situation, where they're, trying to find a way around this pandemic. And I like to talk about this tithe refund by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which I know for a fact you made some posts on social media, and you were like, I may not agree to the theology, of this church, but for what they did, this is a fantastic and a great initiative. Now, I'd like for you to talk about this to our audience right now, what the church did, and why you feel it was a great initiative, yes, and also linking it to possibly other abuses, that financial abuses that was, happening, maybe before in the church, but looking at the fact that for this church to have made that announcement, which you would talk about right now, they must have had a record over a period of time for them to say, this is what we're going to do. So let me just give you the chance to talk about what that church did to the audience right now. Please go ahead.
Well, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we also know it as the Mormon, the Church of Mormon. It's a very institutionalized and very powerful church. Some people call it a sect, some people call it a cult, and a lot of American politicians are actually part of that church. Mormons are very, very huge. They're very professional people, very smart people. You find very successful people belonging to that church. So, and if you see some of their properties, even here in South Africa, they spend good money. They send missionaries from America to do work here. So they have money, and they are very organized. And when this later you just showed up now, came in, is saying, look, we know what people are going through financially, what people are going through economically right now, because about 30 million people, lost their jobs in the US, and people are going through a lot, and say, look, what we're going to do is we're going to refund people their tithes. The tithes that they paid to the church, we're going to refund them for the last 3 years. We have a record. So whether you've been tithing consistently, or whether you are not a consistent tither, whether you are a full member of the church or not a full member of the church, it doesn't matter. We know we have plenty. We've been accumulating, you've been giving us, so we have plenty. So how about we take from the plenty that we have and give it back to you, except you say, I don't want it. Except you say, well, you can keep it. It doesn't really affect me because I'm a multi-millionaire. But a lot of people are going to need that money. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are going to need that money. So for me, this is just a case of saying, we can go into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and talk about their doctrines and all that. But for me, that is Christ-likeness. You see, in the book of Matthew 18, I think verse 1 down to, I think, around 12, You spoke about, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was in prison and you visited me. This is the perfect opportunity for the church to showcase that. And a lot of churches would say, well, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they have so much money and all that. It's not about how much you have that you give, even the little that you have, you should be able to give back to community. Are we looking around community and saying, what is the need for us? This is one of the biggest opportunities for the church to be able to evangelize. Now, if you hear this kind of story from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, obviously you're like, wow, this is the kind of church that I want to go to.
Yeah.
They help community. Even if
Yeah.
you're not a Christian, even if you're not a believer, but like, look, hey, they help community. And that's one of
Yeah.
the pillars of the church. How can we help community?
And apart from even the same thing too with Muslims, if you look at it as well, they equally have that strong pillar of giving as well. It's interesting, and this is an aside. I think I was reading an article a while ago, and I think it had to do with the Italian government warning its citizens not to take foodstuff and gifts basically from the mafia, because apparently the mafia was going around to poor communities and giving foodstuff and everything, and the government is there saying, don't take it from there. But the people are like, we're hungry, we need help right now, and if the mafia is giving us food, we are going to go towards them. So it's interesting how the aspect of giving as well, and also thinking about community and helping people who are in need goes a long way to showing, I guess, our humanity and the godlikeness that we have as well in us. But I'd like to quickly take this comments that came through on Facebook, and that is by Aisha Mohammed Hussein, and she's saying that I have also heard a voice note of an Islamic cleric saying if markets can open, then mosques should as well. But my thought is that people need food. Shops open in the market are mostly shops that sell food items and basic everyday items. The Muslim cleric kept saying there is a potential consequence of mosques being closed in God's wrath. And my thoughts are that has the worship of God stopped? We do it in our homes, in our families. Some churches have been doing online services. We can only, okay, I think that comment just stopped there. Let me see if there's another comment from her as well. And so she's saying that religious bodies should concentrate on safeguarding the people in their call for the opening of worship houses. Yeah, so I guess she's reiterating your point as well, that the fact that
Mm,
we're at home doesn't stop the fact that God is with us. We can still make our prayers, and God is not limited by our own limitations, and
mm,
that is why He is God at the end of the day, right?
mm.
Okay,
Yeah.
we are still live on Facebook and on Twitter. We are broadcasting live on Facebook and on Twitter, and I'm in the studio with Solomon Izang Ashoms. He is a broadcaster and the founder of the movement against abuse in churches. He's in South Africa at the moment, and we're talking about COVID-19 and religion, or religion and COVID-19. If you'd like to share your comments, your thoughts, contributions, please put it in there, because we have roughly about 10 minutes and we're wrapping up the conversation. Going back to you, Solomon, looking again at that type refund, you felt like that was a good example to show leadership from the church, at least from that church, and other churches, and possibly even the mosque as well. How are they thinking about taking care of their community, taking care of their people, and also the community beyond their immediate, shall I say, church, their immediate
Membership.
churches, or their immediate
Yeah.
message. Thank you very much. Their membership. So thank you for that. Here's the thing. There's another video you asked that I play, and I think I'm just going to play that video. And it's interesting because yesterday when I was having a conversation with my other guests, we were talking about how COVID-19 has changed our perspective about life, and there was a comment that was made yesterday. The comment was made yesterday, and I said I was going to, bring that comment here today since we're talking about religion. And it's interesting that with the video that you wanted to, or you showed to me, or sent to me, to some extent also hits on that. I'm just trying to get it ready, and then that would be played. And then once it is played, then we will talk about it. Right?
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. So and now it so happens that we just went out of power in Nigeria or in Abuja, but at least you can still hear my voice. So maybe it's a good time to actually play the video now. So I'm going to do it now.
Can I announce this thing? I was moving. I was in January 2020. The Lord began to show me something over there. I moved to February, March, April, May, June, July. I went to August, September, October.
Oh yes.
November.
Oh yes.
December 2020.
Oh yes.
I looked the whole year.
Oh yes.
It's gonna be a great year.
I receive.
Now let me tell you. When I was praying, I said, God, what this year will be? He said, wait. Ask me what the night shall be. So I went on the 31st December.
Okay. Okay. So I think there's a bit of light now. I just tried to get some natural light from outside. But I hope you can still see me.
Yes. Light up your phones.
So, right. So I've played that video, and the question that came in from yesterday was, every year, at least every year, there's, especially in churches, there's usually a word that goes out, to the congregation regarding how that year is going to be, for them to hold on to and look forward to it regarding that year. And so the question was like, how come he never heard of any particular congregation or maybe church that actually said something regarding COVID-19 of some sort for the church to be, prepared, and knowing that this year is possibly not going to be like the regular year. So he asked that question, and I said, well, I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. But then you also sent this video, and I wanted to hear, your thoughts regarding why you sent this. Please go ahead.
I think first and foremost, the person who made that declaration from January to December is going to be a great year. First and foremost, he's a false prophet. He's not a prophet of God. But then he has mass.
Okay.
He has mass. His name is Prophet Bushiri here in Pretoria in South Africa. But he has millions of people following him. Anytime when I go back home to Nigeria, people are asking me about him. They're asking me to bring water and anointing oil from him. So he's very influential. He's Malawian originally, but he's based here. But for me, it's just a case of, first and foremost, Angela, is it really scriptural for us to, at the end of every year, at the beginning of every year, to give a word and say, this is what God said for this year? Is it really scriptural? Is it really there?
Well,
I'm not against it.
If you ask, okay.
I'm not against it.
No, I hear you.
But I'm just saying, is that really the word of the Lord, or are you just trying to keep people motivated for the rest of the year? I understand if you're trying to keep people motivated for the rest of the year, and it's fine. But is that really the word of? Is it actually scriptural? Are you trying to confine God to saying he works, with this sort of timeline where every year he says this and then that's just it, and people hold on to these things. But for me, it's just a case of, with all different predictions and prophecies for the year and all that, we never had any. I mean, TB Joshua and a couple of people trying to claim glory for it, but we haven't seen any that said, look, in the month of March, there's going to be an explosion of a virus across the world. A virus from Wuhan in China is going to be spread, and countries are going to shut down. Aeroplanes are not going to be able to move. It's something we've never seen since 1819, when we had the Spanish flu virus, which killed millions and millions of people, but nobody was able to do that. So now I think we need to be careful when we, even as a church, as leaders, when we open our mouth to say, this is the work. If you're giving us your opinion, tell us it's your opinion. I understand that totally, because I understand your opinion might be wrong. But if you say it's from God, you're telling me it cannot be wrong. And a lot of people would also hold on to it because they know it's from God. So it cannot be wrong. And when it goes wrong, they get disappointed with God. And God has nothing to do with it.
Okay, so let me read this comment from Ochu-Baiye again. Ochu-Baiye is saying that, funny, my pastor complained because she said the new trend of prophesying every year was pressure she didn't like. It wasn't done in the past. So she said we should put God first for the years 2020. So you are doubting. Yeah, so I get that. But here's another take again, to it. You're saying that, okay, if it was really God that was speaking through this, leaders as well, that somehow God would have at least mentioned COVID-19. But, that's also you saying that you know how God works as well. What if he didn't want to say anything about COVID-19? That's on one hand. On the other hand as well, when you say, oh, it's going to be a great year, it's going to be a fantastic year, do you realize that in every year or in every situation that seems very dicey or in a crisis, like my pastor would always say, where you have crisis, is also an opportunity, a whole lot of opportunity coming out. Even when you're talking about wars, communities going through wars, there are people benefiting from that. So it is so possible that this pastor who said it's going to be a great year is prophesying as well to other people that would benefit from, this COVID-19 situation. Changes are being made. The truth is, okay, so look at it this way. People are now even going back again to seeing the value of family, spending more time, living a minimalistic life. A lot of things are changing. Why can't you see that as a great year as well in 2020? And just not mentioning COVID-19 as that bad thing that would bring about this greatness in other sides.
No, I think it would have been. You have a point there, and I agree with you totally. I think what COVID-19 brought is family union, unity, and I think it's us going back to doing church and serving God from our families, because that's the way it should be, from our homes. The most important part of your Christian life should be your home, not in your church on a Sunday when you go to meeting, when you serve your pastor. No, it should be from your home, because that's the unit that make the society, that make where we are and make us who we are. This prophet in particular that said it was going to be a great year, he wasn't talking about it's going to be great, you're going to discover new ideas and new opportunities in spite of whatever. He was just basically saying God is just going to come and sprinkle money on you. You're going to get jobs that you don't deserve. You're going to get promotions that you, because
but Solomon, you're already biased against him. You're already biased against him
because I know him. He's taken me to court several times, because I know him. Yeah, so that's why I'm able to say that. And at the same time, when we say God is going to do this and God is going to do that, yeah, we want to hear what God is going to do, but at the same time, you should at least tell us, be careful, there's going to be a virus. Be careful, there's going to be a virus. But you would get opportunities in the midst of the virus. But you would get promotion in the midst of the virus. So try to balance it a little bit. And, one of the questions you ask is, why didn't God tell, some of these leaders and before it happened and everything? Sometimes I just sit down and think, just maybe God told some leader, some Christian leader, some pastor, but because they're somewhere in a village or a small town, they're not exposed to social media. They don't have the big platform. They don't have the big crowd. They only meet 30 people. You know, the last 7 years is 30 people, 50 people. Nobody's going to hear about them. You know what I'm saying? And we're probably never going to hear about them. But I still strongly feel that somehow God had told a couple of people. But it's just because they're not the people that would go all around and talk about it, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. Okay. And I think on this note, we have done officially about an hour. We can go on and on and on, but I think I feel your heart and what you're trying to say right now. There's a whole lot that the community of religious bodies can do regarding COVID-19 at the moment. How can we come out of our comfort zone and actually see that a whole lot has changed? And how can we still function in the place that we have been set to function in without taking advantage of people, like you say, without abusing people as well, and seeing the need that there are people that would be relying on, should I say, the body of Christ, relying on also the body of the Muslims as well, because it's religion at the end of the day.
That's
And
right.
when life is at stake, everybody is like on the same level. No one is saying you're higher, you're lower, you're this or that. And interestingly, COVID-19 has just become that thing that has caused everybody to see that, guess what? We, after all, are all human beings. It's like whether you're rich, you're poor, you're beautiful, you're ugly, you're whatever it is, we're all human beings. And it's kind of like a leveler, something that has, put us all on the same level right now. I think I quickly read this comment that came through from Tijani Hakim, all the way from the US. Thank you so much for joining us. Tijani is saying that God always speaks to his children. COVID-19 has opened our eyes to know that knowing him for ourselves is key. Okay,
Very important.
for me,
It's a personal
that's
God.
yeah. So that people probably were already prepared, but maybe because they didn't have that platform to say, guess what? I've heard this specifically from God. They heard it for themselves, for their family, and they started to take precautions. But maybe because of the regular trend that has happened in churches, that every 31st of December, we need to, I don't know, let me not even touch on something that I shouldn't be saying right now. I see John G. Emmanuel saying, brilliant conversation. I love the balanced view. Thank you very much. And also saying that COVID-19 is a reset for the church. It's a reset for the church, reset for everybody, for the family, even for the Muslims as well. We're all thinking differently. How can we see that our lives has literally changed? And I think I'd like to ask you as well, if you think we are ever going to go back to how things were. People are waiting to go back to the normal. Do you think we'd ever get back to that?
We would go back to a new normal, not the old
A new
normal.
normal.
Yes, we go back to a new normal. There's going to be a lot of, the virus is going to be with us for maybe a year or two, before we find a vaccine.
Yeah.
So if we live in a new way for a year or two, that's just going to be another new normal, because we're going to get used to wearing face masks and using sanitizers and being careful where we go to. When we fly, it's going to be a different ball game. When our kids go to school, it's going to be a different ball game. When we go to church, it's going to be a different ball game. Anywhere, when you go to a music concert and all that kind of stuff,
everything.
A lot has changed. So, and I feel we need to just seize the moment. And even if wherever you are, you're a politician, you're a business person, you're a pastor, seize the moment and just ask yourself, what are the opportunities there for us to be able to continue to make our society, our Africa, our country better?
Thank you so much, Solomon. And we finally
Thank you
did
for
this.
inviting me to your wonderful studio. Your studio is looking really great. Yes, I love it. I love the background.
Thank you very much, Solomon. And really does mean a lot to me to have this conversation with you, because I really think that you're one of those people that the extremely balanced. Yes, when you have a point of view regarding something, you're like, yes, this is it. But I also know that you are, no, yeah, I also know that you're extremely balanced as well, especially when other views are brought to you. I think one of the things I like about you as well is when a different view is brought to you, you don't get angry and say, how dare you say this. You actually look into it and talk about it. And and views, we can just talk about it and find a leveling ground as opposed to fighting and
Yes.
making it look like if you don't come my way, then you should, yeah. So thank you for that. And
Pleasure,
you're someone
pleasure.
that I've learned that as well, especially in broadcasting, back in radio as well, having different people giving their views. And I remember those days I would say, how can this person think this way? Why would this person think this way? But you made me see that they can. And the fact that they can think this way, step back a bit and question it further. And maybe, so thank you. Thank you very much for that. And wishing you all of the very best with your movement,
Thank
because
you, thank you.
it is, I mean, I don't even know what you're going through right now, fighting against some of these abuses. But please keep safe, and I guess we keep talking from time to time.
Thank you, and I look forward to watching a whole lot of your programs after this one.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. So
Thank
I'm
you.
going to
God
take you.
bless.
Bye. God bless you too. I'm going to take you out of the studio now, and just be me alone. Okay. Wow, so we finally did this, and it is getting better. Apologies that we had a slight hitch there. We had some issues with the network, and then eventually it came back to the power. We had some power issues. But to everyone watching on Facebook and on Twitter, thank you very much with your comments and your contributions that came in. I sincerely appreciate you for that. So tomorrow, Across Borders is also going to be broadcasting again. Yay! And it's going to be a conversation with a guest all the way in Malaysia. He's Rotimi Afelumo, and he is a technology integrationist. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to be talking about education and technology, and also the impact of what is happening right now to the should I say the educational world in Nigeria. Where should we be right now? So he's in Malaysia, right? He is in Malaysia. That is Rotimi Afelumo, and our conversation is going to be about the global education industry, technology, and its impact on Nigeria. The global education industry, technology, and its impact on Nigeria. So looking forward to having you join in. But this time it's not going to be by 3 p.m. West African time. It's going to be by 12 p.m. West African time, which happens to be about 7 p.m. in Malaysia. And this is why Across Borders does not have a specific time, because the guests that we have are across borders, and with the different time zones, we can't have a set time, because what will work for one person in South Africa would not work for another person in Jamaica, for example. So thank you. We're going to be uploading this video as well on YouTube, so please go on YouTube and search for Across Borders, and you would see the video we had, or the conversation we had as of yesterday, and also this one will be there as well. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think there's another comment that just came through. I'm not sure who that is from. Yes, it's still from John G. Emmanuel, saying, brilliant job, keep it up. Thank you, I appreciate you. So do have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, and God bless you. Yes, share. Yeah, share this broadcast. Click on the share button, please, and let others know about this conversation. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.